welcome to another pandemically erotic episode of Crept from the 80s. It seems like it's been a moon's minute since we visited the 80s again, but I'm back, folks. I am back to talk about something near and dear to my heart and my fart, and farts, plural. And I'm going to be talking about my favorite 80s comedies, I guess, of all time. I mean, I certainly love a lot of 80s comedies, but the ones that I picked out are the films that I can watch over and over and over again, and they mean something to me, and they have a connection with me since I was a kid. Once again, I was born in 77, so I feel like I was coming into a world of of really magical comedy in the 80s. And for me, I think, like most things, we were getting the best of the best in the 80s. And that's movies, television, toys, foods, music, all that stuff. I mean, that's why this channel is here, to celebrate the greatest decade of all time. I'm so parched. I'm going to have a little sip. Seepage, you're saying to yourself. What's that you're sipping on? Well, let me tell you, folks. You've heard me rant about this before, but this is Juicy Juice, orange tangerine flavor, and let me tell you something. If you're missing, if you're craving, if you're yearning for Ecto Cooler again, look no further than Juicy Juice Orange Tangerine. It is, in fact, Ecto Cooler. It is the same flavor. What's great about this is that it's a little less sweet than the High C Ecto Cooler, but it is the same flavor. It is the same texture. It is Ecto Cooler. So get out there, you Ecto Cooler hounds, and grab yourself up some Juicy Juice Orange Tangerine. 4 years ago, for my 40th birthday, all my friends got together to throw me like an 80s themed party. And what we did, we filled a large jug of orange tangerine juicy juice, put green food coloring in it, and then we had Ecto Cooler paper wraps around the cups. So we just, put the liquid in the cups, and you had your juicy juice and you put your Ecto Cooler, and it was delicious. It was great, and it's a fun alternative if you're doing parties and whatnot. But make no mistake, it is Ecto Cooler. So, all right, folks. So, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of, but what about this? But what about that? But what about this? Again, let me specify that there's plenty more 80s comedies that I enjoy, but these just happen to be my favorites. And, some of the 80s comedies kind of go into sci-fi or horror or, action and things like that, and I didn't put those on the list, and they are certainly there. For example, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure or Back to the Future, things like that. Yes, there's comedy, but there's so much more involved in those, and I love them. But these are pretty much, for the most part, they are straightforward, weird, silly comedy films that I was exposed to growing up. My comedy of choice is absurd comedy. At a very young age, I was watching, Benny Hill and Monty Python on PBS. At late nights PBS on the weekends, you could turn the channel and there you'd have like back-to-back Monty Python episodes and Benny Hill. And so that certainly informed me. And then, you know, my mother and my aunts and uncles on the Seaver side would show me all the stuff that they enjoyed growing up with. So I did see the Monty Python movies, and I was exposed to the Zucker Brothers and all that type of weird spoof and absurdity. So I gravitate towards the more absurd, the more silly, surrealist, weird, sometimes subversive, goofy ass shit. And that's, if you're a fan of my films, that is definitely my forte. My comedy writing is you know, the more absurd and weird. So, but these are films that various times throughout the 80s I saw, and they meant something to me. They stuck with me, and throughout the years I have watched these movies like similar to having that feeling of a warm blanket, and it just means something to you, and it puts a smile on your face, like a lot of the movies from the 80s and television shows and cartoons and whatnot. These mean something to me. So, and these are in no particular order, so I'm just gonna whip them out as is. But 1987's Cant Buy Me Love. I don't know why this doesn't have a Blu-ray release. It hurts my delicate sensibilities that it doesn't have a Blu-ray release. I wish it did, with some nice extras. This is a nice... Oh, look at the extras on this. Delicious Dolby Digital surround sound and full screen. So, yeah, my aunt and I saw this movie in theaters. I, of course, was laughing uproariously at this thing. I was 10 years old when this came out. My aunt was not impressed. And there's a great fart scene in this film that had me dying in the theater. And my aunt was just like, oh my goodness, oh my God. But it's a great movie, and I love it, and I can watch it anytime, any day of the week, any month in a year. It's a great film, and I wish we had a nice, cleaned up, proper widescreen Blu-ray of this film. Next, this is... my favorite comedy of all time. There's a lot of great comedies, but this one will always be my number one. Number one. It is Airplane. Zucker, Abrams, Zuckers. I love this movie. To this, I can't even tell you how many times I have seen this film, and I laugh every single time, knowing every single joke, everything that's coming, every sight gag. I laugh my ass off, and it truly informed everything going forward for the Sievage, who I am as a man. But yes, Airplane. And it was, you know, my relatives who showed me Airplane. I'm sure it was HBO the first time I saw it. Very early on, and then it was later that, you know, I watched Kentucky Fried Movie and stuff like that, which I also love. But there's more Zucker, Abrams, Zuckers on this list for my favorite 80s films of all time. Ooh, this is interesting. People are, again, folks, this is my list. You can have your list. I'm not going to come to you and go, but why isn't this on it? But what? Are you serious? This is disgusting. That's stupid. Blah. These are the things that I love and I enjoy. You can have those things that you love and you enjoy. I love Zapped. Again, saw it at an early age, probably HBO. Had some boobies in it, and it was a sex comedy, but with some supernatural elements into it. You know, Scott Baio, Willie Ames, the duo that would become Charles in Charge, Charles and Buddy Lembeck. And I happen to have a theatrical poster that I've had for years hanging on the wall. And this is the Olive Films Blu-ray, and I was believe me, I was really shocked when Olive Films released this on Blu-ray, but I was so happy to have this. I just think it's great, you know, the mind control, the little spoofing of Carrie a little bit in the film, of course the nudity, and the comedic chemistry between Bayo and Ames. I just think it's a great movie, and truth be told, I like Zapped Again, which is from the early 90s, a sequel. You know, it's terrible, but I really enjoy it, and I wish that had a Blu-ray release. I think I have a bootleg DVD of that somewhere, but I first saw Zapped Again, probably on HBO or like one of the USA Up All Night things, and I was like shocked. I was like, what, a sequel? You know, where's my boys? But it does have a few returning characters, but for the most part, anyway. Can't take the place of Zapped. I talk too much about Zapped, I'm sure. But it's great. Oh. Again, this is... I don't know. This shocks me that this does not have a Blu-ray release. It's really bizarre. And this I rented, either in 87 or 88, but I rented it and I fell in love with this movie and it became a staple for me going on. And that is Summer School. This movie is fantastic. One, if you're a crazy, goofy comedy fan, but also if you love horror. Dean Cameron, this is a Carl Reiner film. The guy knows comedy. That man knows comedy. Carl Reiner and Mr. Mel Brooks were two geniuses. Two geniuses. Brooks is still here. Carl Reiner is sadly gone. But this movie, again, this is one of those, like, anytime, anywhere, you can pop it in and feel good and get a smile on your face. Of course, it's got the soundtrack by Danny Elfman, Oingo Boingo, and all that good stuff. Why this doesn't have a Blu-ray release is beyond me. I'm shocked that, Shout Factory, Shout Select has not put this on Blu-ray. And I'm waiting for it. And I haven't watched the movie in a while because I just... I don't want to see it in the quality that this is in, you know? I really want to see it cleaned up and given its just desserts, its due justice. But I love the film. Okay, let's do... Okay. So, these three films I'm doing in a swath because they are all by the same brilliant man. And I'm talking about John Hughes' 16 Candles, Weird Science, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. These three films are, truly up there as classic favorites in my book. And countless times I've seen them since I was a kid growing up in the 80s. My favorite of the three is 16 Candles. It's always been my favorite. Second favorite would definitely be Weird Science, and then Ferris Bueller, and then Breakfast Club. I think, 80s and just the tip of the early 90s, John Hughes is just a powerhouse of comedy for me, and I'll bring up John Hughes again a little later. But, these films can't go wrong. It doesn't matter how many times I've seen them. They are truly pure smiles for me. And I love them. I love them in so many different ways. And these releases from Arrow are spectacular. I hope that Ferris is on the way to give it the treatment as well. But these cuts, these prints, these special features, all of the stuff that they gave Weird Science and 16 Candles, kudos, Arrow Video, kudos. Alright, so as I said, I did grow up watching Monty Python's Flying Circus, and the movies. Yes, I have seen at a very early age. I saw Holy Grail, Life of Brian. Life of Brian didn't do much for me at all. The best thing for me that came out of Life of Brian is Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. The song. I used to play over and over again. I had the cassette of the Python's like greatest hits. Python sings and all their songs. Great stuff. Great stuff. But my favorite Monty Python movie is The Meaning of Life. And my mom and my uncle showed me this movie. Definitely the most intense out of the first three, for sure. It is crazy. It's crazy, and I love it. And it speaks to me. And again, so much stuff that informed who I became as a growing human being, creature, alien on this planet. Because we, folks, are aliens. We're creatures. What are we? We don't know what we are. We are the ones who gave us the name human. But what are we really? I love those questions and more. Yeah. Some of the most funny, clever skits are in Meaning of Life. And I know a lot of people give The Meaning of Life a hard time. And I even think some of the Pythons might give it a hard time. But I think that's ridiculous. I think it's amazing. And great music as well in that. Great music. And lots of boobies. I ain't talking about those thin, skinny boobies. I ain't talking about those small boobies. I'm talking about there's some nice British, buoyant, large, natural boobies. My favorites. And speaking of boobies, this movie I have talked about before on several different episodes, but it is one of my favorites. And so this is a 1988-89 film, but I didn't see it probably until 1990, and I saw it on USA Up All Night with Rhonda Shear. Maybe 89, I don't know. But, and it was called, I Was a Teenage Sex Mutant from Outer Space. That was the TV version title. And it's brought up in the film as well. But this was produced by Charles Band and directed by Dave Dakota. And it's got the Screaming Queens in it. And it's got a fantastic comedy actor, Stuart Fratkin, who I love. But it is called Dr. Alien on the Empire Full Moon side of things. And I love it. I love it, love it, love it, love it. I love this stupid movie. It's so good. I would love to make a reboot of this, like a requel. So many 30 years later, 31, 32 years later, picking up, and the sex aliens come back. I mean, it's a great, funny, terrible cover. It's always had a terrible cover, but it was one of those movies that when it first aired on USA, I was like, I was stupid and I didn't I didn't record it while it was on, and I was like, because back in the day you didn't know when they would air that again, and they certainly did. I mean, down the road they certainly reran a lot of the stuff that they showed on USA Up All Night, and some of that stuff ended up on Monster Vision with Joe Bob and all that later in the 90s and whatnot, but so it wasn't until a bit later that I was going, in my video store, Video Connection, and I saw the cover, and I was like, well, this is I Was a Teenage Sex Mutant from Outer Space. Dr. Alien, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the movie! So I rented it, and then I duped it, because I did that a lot. We had 2 VCRs, and I was always duping tapes back then. I love Dr. Alien. Probably talked a little too much about Dr. Alien on here for you, but it's great, it's funny, it's weird, it's goofy, it's a sex comedy, it's got aliens, it's got the Scream Queens, and it's great. Okay, so... Oh, you know what? I'll do these, because these are sort of all in the same... These are in the same vein. So... Again, 2 Zucker releases in the 80s that we got, and I didn't see this movie until it was on HBO, maybe like a year later that I finally saw it. It came out in 84, but I wasn't even aware of it until it was on HBO, and it was like by the makers of Airplane. But this is Top Secret, one of the greatest, not just spoof movies, but greatest comedies of all time, in my opinion. Top Secret is so friggin' funny and genius. There are some scenes in this movie that blow me away. Just in how they pulled it off, the sight gaggery of it, and the comedy of it. It's just very brilliant, very fun. This is a spoof spy movie with Val Kilmer. Real Genius. I love Real Genius too, but it didn't make my list. I love it, which also needs a Blu-ray release. But this is I believe this is a Australian release of the Blu-ray. But it was one of those, like, finally, this movie hit Blu-ray, and I'm glad I had it. And then in 1988, we all went to see this in the theater and laughed our asses off. I'm saying the whole family did, other than my aunt and my great aunt and my great grandparents. They think this type of stuff is stupidity. But Naked Gun, and this is the trilogy. I like all 3 actually, but I feel the best one is the first one, and of course based off of Police Squad, which I didn't see until after this, and that's because we got a VHS in at Video Connection, and it was like, what? This is where it came from. Very short-lived, but it was great, and you could see where it all sort of came from. The Zuckers, those guys, my God. Jimmy Van Brunt, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so these, I have a whole video on this channel that Chris Tansky and Bobby Heckman and I talk about. The whole video is dedicated to this series, but this is the Police Academy films, and I only love 1 through 4. That's it. The rest are garbage to me. I saw 5 and 6 in the theaters. 5, I felt, coming out of 5, I was like, you know what? I'm done with Police Academy. This was not for me. I hated not having Mahoney and some of the original folks. I mean, there's a lot of original, but I mean, the people that I really gravitated towards. And then 6, I don't know, probably 6 was like a buddy was like, let's just go, and we went, and I was like, okay, 1 through 4 for me. That's it. 1 through 4, that's where it's at. But, so, with those 1 through 4s, again, it was HBO, but also VHS. And I saw them as they were coming out on VHS at my friend, the Sarahs. And I've talked about the Sarahs before. But I would go to Nick Sarahs and Jennifer Sarah, who was my Winnie Cooper. But I would go to their house, and they had a big family, but man, it was like the place to be for getting new shit on VHS and letting everybody watch it. It didn't matter the content or, I mean, we weren't watching, Cannibal Holocaust or anything like that, but I mean, to an extent, their father was really awesome, and we were just watching all this shit, and that's where I first saw the first 4, No, I saw four. I saw four in theaters. I saw four, 5, and 6 in theaters of Police Academy. Yes, but the others I saw at the Sarah's house, and I think 1 through 4 are really, really great comedy films. The rest, no, thank you. And these Blu-rays look fantastic. You can get this on Amazon. It was very cheap. It's a UK release, but you can get it here in the States very easily, and it's all region free. So it doesn't matter that it came from the UK. They are all region free, and they all have extras, which is fantastic. Police Academy, man. Classic series. Now, I love all 3 of these films, and one of the first films to ever really affect me sexual wise was the first film, Porkys. And I saw that at a very early age because my friend Louie and I would peek through his parents', so we would go outside and peek through the house because that's where you could see the TV, and they were watching Porkys, so we were watching Porkys through the outside window, and they didn't know it. And then when we got HBO, I was watching all that stuff late night. Nobody knew I was watching it, of course. But I was when the Porky stuff was coming out, I was already 6, 7, 8, all that, But still, movies a kid should not be watching. But I was eating it up for everything, for the comedy of it, for the boobies. And as I got older, I got a lot more of the subtext and all the stuff that was happening in these films on another layer, which is fascinating. But my favorite of the 3 is Porky's 2, The Next Day. I think it's so funny, and just let me tell you, the cemetery stuff alone still has me in stitches. I think it's knee-slapping comedy, and boogie, 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 boogie. Those who know what I'm talking about. But I love all 3 Porky's films. Yep, again, this one is classic. These are just classics to me. And I'm sure to a lot of people, but this is the stuff that we had as kids growing up in the 80s, Finally came to Blu-ray. It was last year or maybe 2 years ago. Just one of the guys. So happy to have it on Blu-ray in widescreen. This was 100% always an HBO staple. So I did see it early on. And I love, and this wasn't mystical in any way, but I love the 80s stereotype of switching bodies or switching genders or things like that. And again, this wasn't mystical, but it was a switching genders thing. And I have yet to listen to the commentary, but when I got this in, I watched it instantly just to see the cleaned up widescreen beauty of it. Because for the longest time, I just had the VHS and a pretty rough DVD of the film. So, yeah. I mean, shit, man. Billy Zabka. This movie is so good. Joyce Heiser. Oh my gosh. Again, another one of those movies that really hit home the love of the large natural breasts when she busts those chest jowls out at the end. It was magic. So funny. So great. Hell yeah. Just one of the guys. Another classic. I remember seeing this on HBO probably if it wasn't in 84, because maybe it wasn't as fast as it is today when they would come out on video and HBO, so maybe it was 85 or something when I did see it. But I saw it with my mom and a group of her friends, and this is Revenge of the Nerds. And I knew it was nasty. I knew it was I shouldn't have been seeing it, but boy was it funny and sexy and oh my goodness. And a kid 7, 8 years old seeing that movie, and just so much informed me. So much of this comedy, 80s comedy. But this is a classic. The music, the characters, the legacy of Revenge of the Nerds and Booger and Lewis and everything. It is a true classic. And it looks great on Blu-ray. But I gotta tell you, I actually wouldn't mind if they did a 4K upgrade of this movie, because I bet they could clean it up even more. But yeah. I also like Revenge of the Nerds 2. Not as much as 1, and I saw 2 in theaters, and I remember the trailer. I was in the theaters watching another movie, and the trailer for Revenge of the Nerds 2 came on, and it was like Star Wars, the opening, but it was a pocket protector. And I believe they ended up putting that in the film as well, but it was a trailer, like a teaser for the film. And I remember that and getting so excited. But Revenge of the Nerds is a classic. Okay. Let's do... I mean, I've talked about this. Again, it's got its own video. We did a double feature video of the summer of Michael J. Fox with Back to the Future and Teen Wolf. Love this movie. It's awesome. This was a rental for me. Probably 85, 86. And it became like a favorite. It's one of those movies that I can almost recite everything in the film. I've seen it so many times, but I love it. It never gets old for me. It's just a nice, howlishly good warm blanket that fills me with joy. You know, werewolf bar mitzvahs and all that stuff, and boys becoming men, men becoming wolves. But this is great, and the Scream Factory release of this is truly fantastic. They did a 2K scan of this movie, and it's never looked better. But the extras, the documentary, is outstanding. So I love Teen Wolf, and goddamn, ow! Here's some magic. Well, I mean, this is a classic. This is a classic on so many levels, and again, why didn't I include things like Back to the Future and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure when I included this? Because it has the supernatural elements, but it was so integral to shaping Chris Seaver, and that is Ghostbusters. Did not see Ghostbusters in theaters. I saw Ghostbusters when it hit VHS. It was reserved, and it was a huge deal. I mean, because I begged. I remember, and I don't know why we didn't go see Ghostbusters in theaters, because we went to see so much stuff. And I can remember as far back as, well, they tell me 1980 was the first time they took me I was 3 years old, to the movies, and that was Empire Strikes Back, so the family could see it, but I was with them. I certainly don't remember it, but I remember 81, 82, 83, and I was going to the movies with my family and seeing some amazing films. So I don't know why anybody in the family didn't take me to see Ghostbusters. I don't know if it was because like they thought it might be too crazy for me, but that just doesn't make any sense. And I probably should, have a therapy session with all of them and find out why. But it doesn't matter, because I still saw it, as it was coming out, VHS, and it changed. I mean, it's a classic. Ghostbusters is amazing. It was everything to me. Everything. So much so that I became a Ghostbuster. And again, you go down on the channel, you find the Ghostbusters themed episode. I talk about my past and history with Ghostbusters in the 80s, and it's profound. But a true classic. Unfortunately, every release that I've ever had of Ghostbusters has always kind of looked kind of rough, and I think it must be because the the shape of the 35 millimeter prints that they have to make the upgrades might be just rough, but Ghostbusters has always looked rough on any home video format. And I guess this stuff is really the best. I mean, I saw some of the 4K, and I'll stick to this. This is a 4K transfer. It's a 4K scan, but I was not. I've never been impressed with Ghostbusters 2 fares better. You know, it was 4 or 5 years later, and the quality's a little better on home video. But one of the funniest films ever. Again, this was an HBO for me. Fletch. Love it. And one of my good friends, my neighbor Carla, and I went to see Fletch Lives when it opened in theaters. And we liked it. We laughed. But for me, it didn't even touch Fletch. Fletch is so funny. Highly quotable. Watch it all the time. Oh, you know what I did forget? You know what else is in? I'm going to keep on this train. I didn't bring it up, but I'll talk about it. Caddyshack is also one of my favorite. You know, Chevy Chase, those early mid 80s Chevy Chase films. My goodness, you know, he was killing it. So funny. You know, and I was staying up late watching reruns of Saturday Night Live. And my first Saturday Night Live group were the, you know, starting in the 80s groups. I would stay up late and watch Saturday Night Live until from the mid-80s on. So I was unfortunate enough to see a lot of the, you know, Anthony Michael Hall and Robert Downey Jr. days on SNL. Watching it when I shouldn't have been watching it because I was staying up later than I should have. But I love Fletch, and then it goes right into John Hughes written vacation films. I do really like Christmas Vacation, and that is downstairs. I didn't bring it up, but I don't love it as much as I love the first two vacation films. I think these two are true classics, and I've watched them countless times, and they were HBO experiences. I saw Christmas Vacation in theaters with the family. But these two were definitely HBO until I rented them and then duped them and then owned them. So, yeah, I mean, what do you say? They're classics. I hate the kids. I don't like the kids in Christmas Vacation. I think they're kind of underwritten and not as interesting and certainly not as funny as they are in the first two films. You know, Juliette Lewis and Johnny Galecki, they're fine human beings, fine actors. I just didn't like the kids in Christmas Vacation, and I don't even count Vegas. That's not even a thing for me. No thanks. But these two are bona fide classics. My God. And much to people's surprise, I prefer European Vacation to Vacation, but they're both great, and it just inches out a little bit for European Vacation. Then we got yeah. People think I am on crack, but this movie, to me, is the greatest Tom Hanks performance of all time. After this, well, I liked him in Big. I don't love The Burbs as much as a lot of people do. So that doesn't really, you know, affect me. The other stuff, the money pits and the splashes and stuff, that doesn't affect me. But this, my friends, this is truth. Bachelor Party. One of the funniest goddamn films I have ever seen. I love it. Again, man, beautiful, lovely HBO in the 80s. You were seeing some gold. Some gold. and boy did I. And this became an instant classic for me for so many reasons. But Tom Hanks is the best he's ever been, as far as I'm concerned, in film. Not joking. I wish we had comedy Hanks back. I miss him. He was so funny. So good. He was my bosom buddy. Of course, the soundtrack by Scott Oingo Boingo, doing 2 tracks in the film, including the title track. Oh, it's got Adrian Zeman, Little Demon. I have the soundtrack on CD, tape, and vinyl. I think it's fucking great. Love the movie so, so much. This was also one of those, I can't believe it's on Blu-ray. I'm so happy. And this was a birthday present. I remember it well because I was very happy, very excited. But Bachelor Party, man. Can't go wrong. Bachelor Party. It's so good. This is probably, and I'm on, I'm one of those weirdos who really loves The Golden Child. People hate that movie, but I think it's great. I think it's very funny too. But Trading Places is, again, all these favorites, but 100% one of my favorite comedy films of all time. We watch this every year because, essentially it's a Christmas movie. And I showed Katie this, and she loves it now. And now it's a must. Now, we have to watch it every year. But, I used to, I had the DVD, and I'd watch it all the time. I had the VHS, watched it all the time. This was a VHS rental, probably a few years after. This was probably rented at 85, 86, the first time I saw it. But, I quote it. She quotes it. I've got friends who quote it. It's so good, so funny, still holds up, and Trading Places, man. This is a movie that my mom and I saw when it opened. How could you go wrong with the cast in this? Another John Landis comedy classic. 3 of the funniest people from the 80s, as far as I'm concerned, for me. This is 3 Amigos. And I'll never forget the theater experience for this because my mom is very vocal, very emotional. And this movie is one of those films and film experiences where my mom just was off. She was off. She was laughing her ass off so loud. She was probably the loudest person in the theater, and there were people laughing. But and when my mom and I laugh really hard, we always slap our knees, almost like we're trying to catch our breath from laughing so much. But it's an involuntary motion that we have, and this was a knee slapper. 3 Amigos. And then, for some reason, from some very weird reason, this became a staple of my Christmas Eves. And once the VHS came out and I duped it, when we had family friends come over for Christmas Eve night, which we did in the 80s and early to mid-90s, this was one of the movies that was always on in the background. This and Christmas Story and some of the other classics. But for some reason, I don't know why I did this, but I do talk about it on a different video about the effect of the 3 Amigos. But I love this film. This is a fantastic Blu-ray. Great extras. It's got a kick-ass little booklet here that's from an article that has the 3 of them talking about the film, 25 years later at the time, 1986. It's so good. And then my last of my favorite 80s films, comedy-wise, is Tapeheads. I have talked about this film as well. Tapeheads is talk about, again, like everything that I just showed you is an amalgamation of the comedy that informed Chris Seaver and the stuff that I love to do today and how I love to make people laugh, and my writing and all of that. It's from all of this, these comedy giants, these geniuses, these movies that affected me, and this is certainly no exception. Tapeheads is so good. Badly needs a Blu-ray release. Please, please. I don't think it ever will, but my God, I love this movie so much. This is also the version of the DVD. This is my original version. When this movie came out on DVD, it was an instant buy for me. This has the CD with some of the tunes from the swanky modes in the film. And later I named my ska band. In 1995, I started a ska band called the Swanky Modes. And this movie is so funny. If you guys haven't seen it, please, and if you love Tim Robbins and John Cusack, 80s Tim Robbins and John Cusack, if you love music, quirky music, weird music, alternative music, Weird Al, if you love Fishbone, who did the score for this film, it's just so good. It's so good, guys. They use their video skills. They want to make videos, music videos, and so much comedy gold in this film. Devo, everything. Oh my God, the Swanky Modes. The modes. It's so good. Tapeheads. It might not affect you the way it did me growing up. I love this movie. I also have the Laserdisc. I believe, my buddy Zach gifted me the Laserdisc of Tapeheads. I guess just to encase in a frame and put it on the wall, which I will do one of these days. But, and that's it. Those are my, again, plenty more comedies that I love from the 80s, but these are my favorite 80s comedies of all time. So what do you think? What are yours? Tell me your favorite 80s comedies. Did you see a lot of the same 80s comedies that you also loved growing up in that time period? We were so lucky. We were so blessed, guys. What a magical time. What a magical squirt, squidgum of genius, of creativity coming from the best decade of all time, the 1980s. Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video. We have a lot more coming up. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you get all of the magic that comes to you from Crept from the 80s, which is horror stuff, comedy stuff, filmmaking stuff, 1980s stuff, 90s stuff, everything in between. Everything in between. Toys, everything. It's all there. It's everything. Oh my God. It's a plethora of magical moistness. So, again, thanks for watching, and we will see you on another pandemically erotic episode of It Crept from the 80s. God, somebody kill me.